Welcome to the National Gallery in London and to a fascinating exhibition, Vermeer and Music, the Art of Love and Leisure, part of our ongoing event cinema series, Exhibition on Screen. The National Gallery has chosen to explore the serene genius of Johannes Vermeer by focusing on the musical references in his art, in order to understand his broader place in the extraordinary period of art history known as the Dutch Golden Age. This may not be a particularly large exhibition, but as we'll discover, Vermeer paintings are rare, and so any exhibition of his work is a momentous occasion. In this film, we'll examine the exhibition in depth, as well as explore the life and work of this most mysterious artist, who left more questions than answers, but also some of the most exquisite paintings in the whole history of art. For Vermeer and his artistic contemporaries, music was a favourite subject, a means of conveying allegory or innuendo, social status or romantic encounter. The depiction of music in art carried a diverse range of meaning. But artists also sought to communicate something of the power and beauty of music itself, to capture the essence of one art form by means of another. Gathered in a series of elegantly designed rooms, the exhibition draws on the best examples from the National Gallery's impressive collection of Dutch painting to explore this coming together of art and music in all its different manifestations. Now, I'm joined by the exhibition's curator, Betsy Wiesman, here at the very heart of the exhibition, in the room where the 5 Vermeer paintings are. Betsy, what was the actual starting point for this exhibition?
The actual starting point was the opportunity to have Vermeer's painting of the guitar player on loan from Kenwood House while they're closed for renovations to the building. It's a painting from the last part of Vermeer's career, probably dating about 1670-72. And in terms of the size, the scale, the subject matter, it fits perfectly with the gallery's 2 paintings by Vermeer, both of which depict women playing virginal. So we had 3 paintings from about the same period in his career, all with musical subjects. And I thought it would be such a fantastic opportunity to show those together and to explore a little more about music in Vermeer's paintings.
Why is music such a broadly popular subject in Dutch painting in the 17th century, and why was Vermeer drawn to it?
Well, I think many artists were drawn to musical subjects because music really pervaded life in the Netherlands in the 17th century. I always have the sense that, you could walk out of your house at any moment and somewhere, somehow, hear some music. And of course, I think for so many people, it had such positive, enjoyable connotations that artists wanted to record that in paintings, and also people wanted to enjoy paintings of musical subjects.
It's interesting because Vermeer is perceived as such a harmonious painter. But is there any sense in this exhibition, in the way I was going to use the word confronts music, that there is a confrontation between art forms, or is it a fairly symbiotic relationship, broadly speaking, between music and painting?
I think it's very symbiotic, and I think with his late paintings especially, there's an almost synesthetic approach to them, that you either hear the music or you hear, just as importantly, the silence in between musical sounds.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, space is to a painter, and certainly to a sculptor, what silence is to a musician.
Absolutely. And we see that in Vermeer's paintings, in those blank spaces of the walls behind the figures. Other artists might have put in another painting or some sort of accessory to fill the space, but Vermeer is absolutely comfortable in that visual silence in the background of his paintings.
Betsy, for now, thank you.
Thanks.
Now, Vermeer is one of the most fascinating characters in European art, not just because of the extraordinarily beautiful and enigmatically seductive paintings that he produced, but also because, given his status in European art history, relatively little is known about him. Vermeer left no account of his life, and what we do know has been forensically pieced together over the centuries from disparate records and documents in archives across Holland.
Johannes Vermeer was born in Delft in autumn 1632, the only son and second child of Vermeer and his wife Digna. Vermeer was by training a silk worker, originally in Amsterdam, and then here in the smaller city of Delft near the Dutch coast. Towards the end of the 1620s, Vermeer had begun dealing in paintings. Then, around 1630, he had also turned to innkeeping. Delft was one of the wealthier cities in the province of Holland, prosperous due to its thriving industries of tapestry weaving, brewing, and perhaps above all, Delftware. Johannes's early years were spent in the family hostelry, the Flying Fox, on the Voldersgracht. His father's surname at this time was Vos, meaning fox. By 1640, when Johannes was 8 years old, the family name had changed, for reasons that remain unclear, to Vandermeer, from the lake, contracted to Vermeer. At the same time, his parents also gambled on the purchase of a bigger, better inn.
This was a pretty prominent inn on the main square in Delft, so it would have been a place that would have been frequented by the upper class citizens. And we know in the Netherlands at that time there was a great interest in acquiring art. The numbers of paintings in households was quite remarkable, and travelers from different countries would come to the Netherlands and they would say, oh, even the butcher or the baker have paintings hanging in their homes.
And at some point, young Johannes decided he didn't only want to admire art or help his father sell it, but to make it too. Johannes's father died in 1652, and Johannes was expected to run the family business. Yet, after little more than a year, he was accepted into the Guild of St. Luke, a prerequisite to becoming a working artist. Artists at this time were expected to undergo an apprenticeship, usually of 6 years, with a master painter who belonged to a guild. It was these guilds that accredited artists and regulated their commercial activities. Vermeer left behind no letters, no account of his life, but it must have been here that he learnt how to paint.
To me, I think it's one of the fascinating things that distinguishes Vermeer from other artists, actually, in some fundamental ways. That he starts his career not as a painter of interior genre scenes or a painter of views of Delft or little streets or things like that, but as a history painter. So he starts as painting large-scale biblical and mythological scenes. So for most people, these paintings are anathema. They can't really figure them out. Why do they exist? I mean, why is Christ in the house of Mary and Martha? What does that have to do with Vermeer?
This is perhaps the earliest surviving painting by Vermeer. It's certainly the largest and quite possibly a commission. St. Luke's Gospel tells of Christ's visit to two sisters, Mary and Martha. Christ praised Mary's desire to listen to his teachings, whereas Martha is shown more concerned with daily chores. The treatment of light and the characterization of the subjects were probably inspired by artists from Utrecht, who had in turn been influenced by the master Italian painter Caravaggio. Just over a year later, Vermeer painted this, the Procuress. Few of Vermeer's paintings are as provocative as this depiction of a prostitute and her client, a conventional theme in contemporary Dutch art. Here, the Procuress looks approvingly on, while a soldier offers a young woman a coin while fondling her breast. Holding a glass of wine in one hand, she willingly accepts his money with the other. On the left, an elegant dandy, dressed in a beret and a fashionable slit-sleeve jacket, smiles out at the viewer. This dimly lit figure is thought to be the only existing portrait of Vermeer himself. This is Diana and her nymphs, another of the early known works, painted when Johannes was 31 or 32. It's true that these mythological and biblical scenes seem at first glance far from the Vermeer we know, but look again. The grainy textures, the serene female figures, the dreamlike atmosphere. These paintings actually point up what was to come, rather more than one might have thought.
Painted when Vermeer was in his early 30s, the music lesson depicts a young woman playing a keyboard as a male companion stands by, his parted lips suggesting he may be singing. Though the pair are widely believed to be a pupil and her teacher, Vermeer himself didn't title the work, so the relationship between the two is a matter of historic conjecture. The inscription on the instrument reads, "Music is the companion of joy, the medicine of sorrow," alluding both to music's alleged curative properties, as well as to the fact that love, like music, can be the source of both joy and sorrow. With the viewer held at a distance by objects in the foreground and the glimpse of the woman in the mirror above the virginal, the painting is as much about looking as it is about music. And joining me to delve into the enigmatic world of Vermeer's music lesson is the writer Tracy Chevalier. Tracy, bigger picture first. What drew you to Vermeer?
I really loved Vermeer's paintings because they're so quiet. In a world that's really noisy, in order to look at one of these paintings, you have to slow right down and get calm and quiet. And that's pretty unusual. He has a special something to do with the light and the color and the stillness of the paintings that really drew me in.
The music lesson in particular, is this quiet or is this one of the noisier paintings he produces?
I think this is a really quiet painting, really quiet. Even though she's supposedly playing, I suppose, I don't think they're saying anything to each other. It's a very surprising painting to me because when you look at it, it's quite large for Vermeer, and yet the action is taking place here, it's off-center, and a lot of the painting is just room. So they're kind of squished together over there in the back, really far away from us. So there's deliberate distance.
And then this focal point that, of course, are the two figures. But for me, as the art historian, I can't but be drawn to the mirror that shows her, but also above her head, the legs of the easel. So Vermeer's unravelling the whole fiction of painting and process. Presumably, that appeals to you as a writer of fiction.
Yes, it's subtly done because at first you're looking at the people, and it's only after a while you realize that's not a painting. There is a painting on the right, but this is the woman being reflected, and even when her face is reflected in the painting, you can't really see her face very well. But in the top are the legs of the easel. He somehow wanted to insert himself, and yet he's so far away, and really the easel's out here, and there's no way that it could actually be reflected. So he's playing around with perspective.
It seems to me that there's so many narrative possibilities in a Vermeer painting. I mean, the most obvious one is the relationship between these two, but then in the detailing, in the mirroring and what else is there. In some ways, that must make him very inspiring for you, but on another level, it's quite daunting, isn't it? There's almost too many ways that this could go if you were writing stories around it.
It's inspiring, but I think the genius of it is that you never really know. So when I wrote about the painting Girl with a Pearl Earring, I wrote a whole novel about the look on her face. And I still don't really know what she was thinking. And in this painting, it's called The Music Lesson, but Vermeer didn't he didn't title his paintings. And so maybe this is a man teaching a woman to play, but maybe it's a suitor listening to potentially his fiancée or It could be, or it could be a father listening to his daughter. It's very difficult to interpret. And because they're so far from us, it's like Vermeer doesn't really want us to know. He's saying, I'm giving them a private moment, and you're standing here, and you're not going to get any further into that story.
That's interesting. So you don't think that he is giving us a series of clues which we can use and we can construct our own narratives? You're saying fundamentally that you think he's trying metaphorically to throw a spanner in the works. He's always trying to resist a narrative interpretation.
Yes, I think that when he does allow more open interpretation, the paintings aren't as successful. The most successful paintings are the most mysterious. So, for instance, symbolically, you have a bass viol here, you have a pitcher of wine. They're both very curvaceous, and in Dutch symbolism of the time, that's meant to indicate a woman. It could be very sexual. It could be the wine, he's going to get her drunk and have his way with her. But all of that seems so crude when you apply it to this painting. Yes, they are round, they're there, but they don't, to me, they don't feel like that's what's going on here.
Tracy Chevalier, for the moment, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is the first room of the exhibition, and it's dedicated to the idea of music as either allegory or attribute. Music had long been an allegorical motif in art, a tradition that continued in the Dutch Golden Age. In a time before recorded sound, the sense that music existed only in the moment of performance and then disappeared forever was even more acute. And so in this still life, the musical instruments that sit alongside a skull, an hourglass and other objects are intended to link the ephemeral quality of music to the transitory nature of human life. But musical instruments could also signify personal attributes, as in this portrait of Constantijn Huygens and his clerk. Huygens was a powerful and busy man, secretary to the Dutch head of state. He was also a passionate musician and found the time to write over 800 musical pieces, only a handful of which survive. His musical abilities and knowledge of theory were important indicators of his sophistication, and in this painting, an archlute, a long-necked instrument with additional bass strings, lies on a table gathered together with an array of objects representing his other interests. Karel Fabritius's gentle handling of the cool Delft light and interest in optics must have had an influence on Johannes Vermeer, who was just beginning as an artist when Fabritius was resident in the city. This small painting shows a man, believed to be Fabritius himself, sitting next to a number of instruments, which he is presumed to be selling. He looks out pensively on a strangely quiet street scene, perhaps contemplating the two paths in life that seem to be on offer. More worldly pleasures and preoccupations are embodied both by the tavern sign behind and the musical instruments themselves, once again a shorthand for everything that is transitory in life. And then across the way stands Delft's imposing Nieuwe Kerk, the new church, with its offer of eternal life.